Maya Collins pressed her badge against the sleek silver turnstile, and the light blinked red instead of green. She froze, her breath sharp in her chest. Daniel Reeves' voice echoed in her memory. "You've seen too much." Panic clawed at her ribs as the line of co-workers behind her shifted uncomfortably. Liam Brooks muttered under his breath, pretending not to notice, while Ava Chen's eyes darted toward the security desk. The silence was suffocating, the kind that makes every sound unbearable. Maya tried again, and again the red light flashed like a silent alarm. She whispered, "No, this can't be happening." Her pulse thundered in her ears as she felt the walls of safety crumbling. The security guard stepped forward slowly, his radio crackling, eyes narrowed, as if rehearsed for this moment. Maya's mind screamed to run, to disappear, but her body locked in place. The hum of computers, the shuffle of feet, the cough of a stranger, it all blended into the cruel soundtrack of her collapse. Something deep inside told her, this wasn't an accident. This was war. Maya walked outside into the crisp morning air, her chest tight as if she'd been dragged out of the building by invisible chains. She wanted to scream but swallowed it down. A woman with a coffee cup bumped her shoulder and muttered something sharp, but Maya barely heard it. She dialed her phone with shaking fingers, listening to the endless ring. "Pick up," she whispered. At last, Elena's calm voice answered. "Maya, what's wrong?" Maya's words tumbled out, broken, jagged, like glass in her throat. "My badge, it's dead. They know everything." A silence spread through the line, heavier than the city traffic roaring behind her. Maya's knees buckled, but she pressed against the cold stone wall, holding herself upright. Elena said softly, "Come home now." And the world spun as Maya realized home might not be safe either. Maya sat in her car, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles whitened. Every reflection in the rearview mirror looked like someone watching her. She replayed the moment again and again, the red light blinking like a siren in her mind. A child's laughter floated through the parking lot, and she thought of Noah waiting at home. Her phone buzzed on the seat beside her, a new email notification. Her throat tightened as she opened it. The subject line read, "Compliance review, immediate action required." Her heart lurched. She whispered, "They're coming for me." Cars passed by, horns blaring, but inside the vehicle, everything was silent, suffocating. Maya wanted to drive away forever, but knew there was no road far enough. At the kitchen table, Elena placed a mug of tea in front of Maya, steam rising like fragile hope. Noah's laughter echoed faintly from the living room, but Maya's face was pale, her eyes rimmed red. "You have to tell me everything," Elena said, her voice firm but quivering at the edges. Maya stared at the untouched mug. It started with numbers, small mismatches, then emails. And now, her words faltered. Elena reached across the table, taking Maya's shaking hand. "You're not alone," she whispered. Maya closed her eyes, clinging to that fragile truth, but inside she knew the walls were closing in. That night, Maya lay awake staring at the ceiling, the ticking clock slicing the silence. Beside her, Mark's steady breathing offered no comfort. She replayed every decision, every email, every glance that now felt like betrayal. Sleep would not come. A faint vibration on the nightstand pulled her eyes toward the phone. An unknown number glowed on the screen. Her hand hovered, hesitation clawing at her. She whispered to herself, "Don't answer." The phone buzzed again, louder, insistent, like a warning wrapped in silence. Maya turned it face down, but the weight of it pressed heavier than stone. Somewhere outside, a dog barked, and the night swallowed her fear whole. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, her hair unbrushed, her suit jacket crumpled across the chair. She stared at the floor, not hearing Noah's laughter in the other room. The badge incident looped in her mind like a broken reel. Elena entered softly, setting a hand on her shoulder. "You're scaring me," she whispered. Maya forced a brittle smile, but her lips trembled. "I'm fine," she lied, voice cracking at the edges. The sound of the kettle whistling filled the silence between them. Elena squeezed her shoulder tighter, her worry plain. Maya felt the weight of it, but also the warmth, an anchor in the chaos. She whispered to herself, "I don't know how much longer I can hold this together." The words were almost too soft for Elena to hear, but they hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. At the breakfast table, Noah banged his spoon on the bowl, giggling with joy, while Mark scrolled through his phone, oblivious. Maya stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, her eyes hollow. Elena set toast on the table and glanced at her, trying to catch her gaze. Mark finally looked up, his brow furrowed. "You're quiet. What happened at work?" Maya's spoon clinked sharply against the mug. She forced a laugh, thin and brittle. "Just tired," she said. Noah raised his spoon like a sword and shouted, "Mommy, fight!" and she nearly burst into tears. Instead, she ruffled his hair, whispering, "Always, kiddo." Inside, she knew she was fighting something much larger, something that threatened all of them. Later that day, Maya sat in her car outside Noah's school, watching children spill out with backpacks swinging, their laughter filling the crisp air. She clutched the steering wheel, unable to shake the feeling of eyes on her. A dark sedan idled a few spaces away, tinted windows reflecting the afternoon sun. Her chest tightened. She dialed Elena quickly. "Someone's watching me," she whispered. Elena's voice was calm but urgent. "Drive straight home, don't stop." Maya's eyes locked on Noah, who ran toward the car, waving. She plastered on a smile, hiding the storm inside, and opened the door for him. As he climbed in, the sedan's engine roared softly, pulling away as if it had been waiting for this moment. That evening, Maya sat at the dining table with papers scattered like fallen leaves. Bank statements, work emails, notes scribbled in the margins, her secret evidence. Elena leaned over, whispering, "You can't keep all this here, it's dangerous." Maya's hands trembled as she slid one sheet forward. "Look," she said, pointing at numbers that didn't add up. "They're moving funds, covering losses. It's worse than I thought." Elena pressed her lips together, her eyes wide. "Then you need help." Maya shook her head fiercely. "No one can be trusted." Outside, the hum of cars blended with the tension inside. The house felt too small for secrets this big. Late at night, Maya stood by Noah's bedroom door, watching him sleep. His chest rose and fell in the rhythm of peace she no longer knew. A stuffed dinosaur rested in his arms, and the nightlight cast gentle shadows across his face. She whispered to herself, "For you, I'll do this." Her hand lingered on the doorframe, steadying her. Behind her, Mark called softly, "Maya, come to bed." She wiped her eyes quickly, not wanting him to see the storm raging inside. As she closed the door quietly, her heart carried a silent vow. No matter the cost, she would protect him. Maya sat in the conference room, the air thick with tension as colleagues whispered among themselves. Daniel entered with polished confidence, his smile sharp, his eyes colder than glass. "We've had some irregularities," he said, voice dripping with rehearsed calm. Maya felt every gaze land on her, a spotlight without mercy. Liam shifted in his chair, avoiding her eyes, while Ava scribbled notes she didn't need. Maya clenched her pen so tightly, it nearly snapped. She forced her voice steady. "If there are questions, I'll answer them." Daniel's smirk deepened. "Careful, Maya. Transparency can be dangerous." Laughter rippled faintly around the room, but it was hollow, frightened. Maya swallowed hard, realizing this was no meeting. It was a warning. Maya walked briskly through the office hall, papers clutched against her chest like armor. She heard laughter from a break room, and her name whispered like poison. Her heart thudded in her ears, each step heavier than the last. At her desk, a yellow envelope sat waiting. She tore it open with shaking hands. Inside was a warning slip, official, sterile, damning. "Performance concerns." She whispered, "This isn't about performance." The words blurred before her eyes. Co-workers passed behind her, their silence louder than any accusation. She wanted to scream, but instead she sat rigid, her hands trembling as the walls of the office pressed closer. That evening, Maya sat across from Elena at the kitchen table, the warning slip between them. Elena read it with wide eyes, her fingers trembling. "They're building a case against you," she whispered. Maya's jaw clenched. "It's a trap. They want me scared." Elena reached across the table, but Maya pulled her hand back, frustration spilling through her voice. "You don't get it. They've already decided." Noah's laughter floated from the living room, innocent and unknowing, and Maya's throat tightened. Elena's voice broke. "Then what are we supposed to do?" Maya looked at the slip again, the words burning like fire. "We fight," she whispered, though her voice shook with fear. Maya stayed late at the office, the building nearly silent, her screen glowing with spreadsheets. She traced the numbers, finding mismatches that multiplied the deeper she searched. Her pulse raced with every line uncovered. The silence was broken by footsteps in the hallway. She froze, her eyes darting toward the door. The sound faded, but her body trembled with adrenaline. She whispered, "I'm not paranoid. They're watching." She copied files onto a small flash drive, her fingers shaking. Every keystroke felt like a countdown to exposure. She tucked the drive into her pocket, heart pounding like a drum. At dinner, the silence was unbearable. Mark chewed slowly, his eyes fixed on Maya. Finally, he said, "People are talking, Maya. My boss asked me if you're in trouble." She froze, her fork hovering mid-air. "It's nothing," she said, voice brittle. Elena glanced at her, eyes wide with warning. Mark leaned forward. "Don't lie to me. This affects all of us." Maya's chest ached as she whispered, "I'm trying to protect you." Noah giggled, spilling juice on the table, blissfully unaware. Elena quickly wiped it up, her hands shaking. Mark's stare pierced Maya, cold and sharp. The family she fought to protect now sat under the shadow of her unraveling secret. Maya hurried into the dim parking garage, footsteps echoing like warnings in the concrete hollow. She clutched her bag tight, her breath shallow. Liam appeared from behind a pillar, his face pale in the fluorescent light. "We need to talk," he said quickly, glancing over his shoulder. Relief rushed through her, but it was fleeting. He handed her a folder, his hands trembling. "This is what you wanted," he muttered. She opened it and froze. The documents weren't evidence. They were staged, altered, designed to frame her. Her heart dropped into her stomach. Liam's eyes wouldn't meet hers. "I didn't have a choice," he whispered. Maya felt the sting of betrayal sharper than any corporate threat. Maya staggered back against the cold pillar, the folder slipping from her grip. Papers scattered like fallen leaves across the concrete. "You were supposed to help me," she hissed, voice breaking. Liam reached out, but his hand faltered in midair. "They threatened me," he confessed, his voice hollow. Maya's chest burned with rage and grief all at once. Footsteps echoed again from the far end of the garage. She froze, her eyes darting to the sound. Liam stepped back quickly, disappearing into the shadows, leaving her surrounded by evidence that wasn't hers. For the first time, Maya realized she wasn't just fighting corruption, she was being set up to take the fall. Back at home, Maya slammed the folder onto the table, startling Elena. "It's a trap," Maya said, her voice shaking with fury. Elena flipped through the papers, her face draining of color. "These make it look like you orchestrated everything," she whispered. Maya's hands trembled as she pulled her hair back. "Liam gave it to me. He was my friend, and now..." Her voice cracked. Elena grabbed her hand. "Then you can't do this alone anymore." But Maya shook her head, eyes blazing. "If I let anyone else in, they'll twist it, just like this." The clock ticked loudly, every second a reminder that her time was running out. The next morning, Maya sat across from Daniel in his office, the skyline glowing behind him like fire. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, his smile too polished. "You've been busy," he said, sliding the very same folder across the desk toward her. Maya's stomach clenched. He knew. He always knew. "This isn't mine," she snapped, her voice tight. Daniel chuckled softly, his eyes sharp. "Perception is reality, Maya. And right now, reality doesn't look good for you." The weight of his words sank deep. For the first time, Maya felt the ground crumble completely beneath her feet. Maya stepped out of the office, her legs unsteady, the world blurring around her. Colleagues avoided her eyes as she passed, their whispers sharp as knives. She gripped the folder tightly against her chest, though it felt like it was burning her hands. In the elevator's reflection, she saw herself. Haunted, exhausted, a shadow of who she had been. She whispered, "They've already buried me." When the doors opened, the hum of the office floor greeted her, cold and impersonal. Still, she forced herself to walk forward, each step echoing with defiance she didn't feel. The fight wasn't over, but the battlefield had shifted against her. The courtroom air was suffocating, heavy with silence as Maya took her seat at the witness stand. The judge's gavel had barely struck, yet every pair of eyes burned into her skin. Papers rustled faintly, echoing like thunder in her ears. Daniel sat at the defense table, his suit immaculate, his smirk sharper than any blade. Maya swallowed, forcing her voice steady. "I have evidence," she said, lifting her trembling hand toward the folder. Gasps spread like wildfire through the audience. Her pulse throbbed so violently she thought it would crack her ribs. In that moment, she felt both terror and defiance intertwining in her chest. The silence before the storm was unbearable. Maya opened the folder, her fingers brushing across each page as though it carried fire. "These aren't projections," she said, her voice cracking. "They're falsified reports, billions hidden in plain sight." Murmurs erupted, the sound swelling through the courtroom. Daniel leaned back, feigning boredom, though his jaw tightened ever so slightly. Maya's throat was dry, her palms slick, but she pressed forward. "This isn't speculation. It's the..." The words thundered from her lips, leaving no room for retreat. The judge raised a hand for silence, but the room buzzed with disbelief. Maya's heart pounded, each beat daring her not to collapse under the weight of truth. Daniel rose slowly, his smile cold as steel. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his tone dripping with disdain, "what you hear is desperation, not truth." His words slithered through the air like poison. Maya's stomach twisted, but she gripped the stand tighter, refusing to shrink. He paced the floor, his polished shoes clicking against marble. "This woman," he said, pointing toward Maya, "would see this company fall just to mask her own failures." The crowd shifted uneasily, their trust wavering. Maya's hands trembled, yet her voice cut through the haze. "No, Daniel. I would see the truth rise, no matter what it costs me." The tension snapped like a whip across the room. The judge leaned forward, his voice steady but urgent. "Do you have proof to support this claim?" Maya's chest heaved as she pulled out a small flash drive from her pocket, holding it aloft. Gasps rippled louder than thunder. "Encrypted files," she said, her voice steady now. "Every transaction, every falsification." Daniel's face faltered for the first time, his smirk breaking under the weight of exposure. The flash drive gleamed under the lights like a weapon. Maya's pulse raced, but her spine straightened. In that instant, she wasn't just surviving. She was striking back. The courtroom crackled with electric anticipation. As the files projected onto the courtroom screen, rows of falsified reports filled the air with undeniable truth. Gasps turned into shouts, the audience stunned. Maya's knees trembled, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. Elena sat in the gallery, her eyes wet with both fear and pride, gripping Mark's hand tightly. Daniel's mask cracked, his polished confidence reduced to fragments. The judge struck the gavel, demanding order, but the moment had already taken root. Maya whispered to herself, unheard by the room, "It's out now. No one can bury it again." The weight of years lifted, though the cost had only just begun. The courthouse steps overflowed with cameras and reporters shouting questions, their flashes bursting like lightning. Maya shielded her eyes, Elena gripping her arm tightly. Mark walked just behind, his jaw clenched, Noah's small voice asking, "Why are they yelling at Mommy?" Maya forced a smile for him, though her chest ached. A reporter shoved a microphone forward. "Are you a hero or a traitor?" The words sliced through the air. Maya swallowed hard and whispered, "I told the truth." The crowd erupted, some cheering, others jeering. She felt both exposed and unshackled as the noise swallowed her whole. That evening, the family sat in the living room, with the television glowing. News anchors debated Maya's name as though she wasn't in the room. Whistleblower or liability, one asked. Maya stared blankly at the screen, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug. Noah leaned against her, asleep, his head heavy on her lap. Elena switched the channel off, breaking the noise. Silence filled the room, heavy and raw. "You did what was right," Elena whispered. Mark leaned against the wall, his face unreadable. Maya's voice cracked as she whispered, "But will it matter?" The question lingered like smoke. The next morning, Maya walked past her office building, its glass walls gleaming in the sunlight. Her badge no longer worked, but she still felt tethered to its shadow. Colleagues streamed inside, their eyes slipping past her like she was invisible. She whispered to herself, "This isn't my place anymore." A woman brushed past her, muttering under her breath. Maya felt the sting of exile, sharp and final. She turned away, the weight of loss sinking into her bones. The building stood tall, indifferent, as if she had never existed within its walls. Maya sat across from her lawyer in a quiet office, the blinds half closed, shadows cutting across the table. "The company will settle," the lawyer said, sliding papers toward her. "But it won't restore your job." Maya traced the edges of the contract, her stomach twisting. "They ruined me, and now they're buying silence." Her voice shook with bitterness. The lawyer leaned back, expression neutral. "Sometimes survival means compromise." Maya shook her head. "No. If I sign this, they win." Her reflection stared back from the polished wood, a woman both broken and unyielding. That night, Maya stood on the balcony, city lights glowing in the distance. Elena wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, whispering, "You're not alone." Maya's eyes shimmered with exhaustion, her breath fogging in the cold night air. "They'll forget me," she said softly. Elena shook her head. "No, they'll remember what you did." Maya gripped the railing tightly, torn between relief and grief. She whispered, "The truth has a cost." The city below buzzed, indifferent, but in that moment, Maya felt both defeated and strangely free. Maya walked through the quiet park at dawn, her shoes crunching against frost-covered grass. The city still slept, but her mind buzzed with the noise of everything she had endured. She sat on a bench, clutching a folded newspaper with her name plastered across the front page. The headline screamed louder than she ever could. A jogger passed, giving her a curious glance, but she kept her eyes down. "They'll never see the cost," she whispered, voice thin in the cold air. Her chest rose with pride and grief, all at once. The truth was out, but she carried the scars alone. At a small cafe, Maya stirred her coffee absently, the cup trembling in her hands. Elena sat across from her, eyes gentle but tired. "You're stronger than you know," she said softly. Maya smiled faintly, though her eyes betrayed the weight she still carried. Mark arrived late, sliding into the seat beside Elena. His silence spoke louder than words, his hand resting on the table, hesitant but present. Maya felt the warmth of family even in fractured silence. "At least we're together," she whispered, letting the moment settle into her bones like fragile peace. In Noah's room, sunlight spilled across the floor where toys lay scattered. Maya knelt beside him as he built a tower of blocks, his laughter ringing like a melody of innocence untouched. He looked up, grinning. "Mommy, I made it strong." Maya's throat tightened as she touched the fragile tower, her smile breaking through the cracks of exhaustion. "Yes, you did," she whispered. In his eyes there was no scandal, no betrayal, no courtroom, only love. For a moment, the world outside didn't matter. She drew him close, breathing in the purity of his laughter, grounding herself in the only truth that couldn't be twisted. Later, Maya stood at her apartment window, watching the city pulse with indifferent rhythm. News vans were gone. The chaos had moved on, but the silence left behind felt heavier. She whispered, "The truth is out there now. They can't take it back." Her reflection in the glass looked older, wearier, but her spine was straighter. Elena walked up behind her, wrapping arms around her waist. "You did it," she murmured. Maya rested her hand over Elena's, eyes never leaving the skyline. The world hadn't changed overnight, but something inside her had, an ember of resilience, unyielding in the dark. The final night was still, the air heavy with quiet. Maya sat at the dining table alone, a single lamp casting soft light on the flash drive resting before her. She stared at it, the small object that had set fire to her life and freed her in equal measure. Slowly, she slid it into an envelope, sealing it shut. Her hand lingered as she whispered, "It was worth it." A tear traced down her cheek, but her lips curved into the faintest smile. She placed the envelope on the table, turned off the lamp, and let the room fall into silence, leaving only the echo of her choice.